Hi everyone and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel and today I'm doing, yes, another recent reads. I want to talk about 5 books I have read recently and just what I thought about them and what I rated them. First of all, I apologize that I feel like I've done nothing but recent reads lately, so I apologize if you're getting tired of the book reviews. I know that's kind of mainly what this channel, at least for me, is for, to be able to talk about the books that I'm reading, but I promise there is different content coming as well. I just don't want to get behind on the recent reads and then just have a giant backlog of books to talk about, so I'm trying to keep up with it. So I apologize for all the recent reads, but I have 5 books to talk about today. I have my trusty little notebook here with all my notes in it to make sure that I remember what I want to talk about with each book. So if I'm looking away from the screen, that is why. I also have my Kindle here to show you the pictures. I don't have any of these books physically, unfortunately. I think I borrowed all of these from the library, so I don't have them anymore, but I will hold up a picture for you so you know what the cover looks like and you can remember what I'm talking about. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. First of all, this is the UK cover, not the US cover. I think the UK covers are so stinking pretty of this series. My goodness, they're beautiful. I think they're so much better than the US covers, so hence why I have this one up here. But this is the second book in the Skyward series. I'm not entirely sure what the series is officially called. Skyward is just the name of the first book. If you've never heard about the series before, it is a YA sci-fi series. We're following this girl named Spencer, and she lives on this planet with a kind of a small inhabitants of humans. They're trapped on this planet, and there is an alien race that is constantly sort of dogfighting with them with ships and everything and keeping them on the planet. They're mainly living underneath the surface of this planet to kind of protect themselves, but kind of the highest honor in this society is to be a fighter pilot, to be protecting the people on the planet. Now, Spencer really wants to be a fighter pilot. It's her dream. It's actually what her father was as well. The problem is that there was a huge epic battle and her father actually fled because he was afraid, and because of that he was deemed as a coward and he ended up dying in that fight because of that. And the biggest thing, like the biggest no-no in the society, is to be labeled in any way a coward. And since her father is labeled a coward, she's also labeled as a coward in a way, and she's trying to fight against that to be able to become a fighter pilot. And that's kind of like the basic thing. There's a lot more to it than that, but it's really great. This is probably my favorite kind of series I've read by Brandon Sanderson. I've tried a few other ones. He's kind of like a booktube darling author. So I am really enjoying this series a lot. I obviously I'm not going to say too much about what the synopsis is for the second book because I don't want to spoil anything, but here's some thoughts that I had with it. It took me a bit to get into this one, possibly because the overall feel was different than the first book. This one definitely kind of went off in a different direction. Not that it wasn't enjoyable, it just wasn't expected, and so it took me a while to kind of get into what was going on in the story. I enjoyed seeing Spence's character's development to being a more compassionate person. She's a very abrasive person, and part of that is because she doesn't want to be seen as a coward. So she's very headstrong and just says what she wants to say, and she's very direct and kind of just like this loud, abrasive person. And she kind of gets to be a little bit more of a compassionate person in the second book, so I loved seeing her character development. I loved so many of the new characters and races, like different types of alien races and things that were introduced in this book. It added a lot of complexity to the world. The world definitely opened up a lot more in this. There was a lot more world building. It was very fascinating. Somehow Sanderson pushes the bar with high stakes. He is really good at just pushing the stakes higher and higher in his stories to just so much anticipation and honestly fear for the characters, which I really enjoy. I feel like the characters are never always entirely safe, which is kind of nice to have in a book, to not feel like, oh, no matter what happens, no matter how the stakes are, they'll be fine. It's kind of nice to read it and be like, you never know what's going to happen. And he could just kill off characters if he wanted to, because he does that. I'm really excited to read the next one, the third, and I think final book. I think it's just a trilogy is coming out this year, so I'm excited to finish it up. Hopefully I don't wait too long to read the third one, because there's a lot that happened in the second one. There was a lot that happened in the first, but boy, there were a lot of stuff that happened in the second. So I need to read the third one pretty soon after it comes out. Because otherwise I'm going to end up forgetting what happened. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. So highly recommend the series. I think it's great for people that are kind of dipping their toe into sci-fi too. I feel like it doesn't fly over your head too much. If you're not a huge sci-fi person and you want to try sci-fi, I think this is a really great series to start with. All right, let's jump into some middle grade. This is one I had on my TBR for a very, very long time, and that is The Adventurers Guild by Zack, Loran Clark, and Nick Eliopoulos. I apologize if I butchered both of those names. First of all, I love this cover. It's just such a cool, just attention-grabbing cover. I just think it's so neat. So this is a middle grade series. I don't know how many books it is. I'm not sure if it's just a trilogy or if there's more than that. But this series is very much so Dungeons and Dragons inspired in a way. We are in a society where when kids reach a certain age, they are basically placed into different guilds. So there's the Merchant Guild and the Mage Guild. There's all these different guilds. Similar to Dungeons and Dragons, where a lot of times you choose a race in a guild and that kind of thing. And this is the same thing. There's different types of races. There's dwarves, elves, humans, I think there's some other ones, and they're just put into these different guilds. And there's certain guilds people are really hopeful to get into, but once you're kind of placed in a guild, then that's it. That's like what your guild is for life. That's basically what your job is for the rest of your life. So they live in this town that's basically walled up. Nobody leaves the town because there are dangerous monsters outside of the city wall. So everyone lives in this town. Apparently there aren't very many towns left. Like there's very few like living civilization left because these monsters are so dangerous. Now there's this one guild called the Adventurers Guild that nobody really wants to be a part of because it has such a high rate of death. That's because the Adventurers Guild are responsible for protecting the city against the monsters. And so a lot of times when the monsters get a little bit too close, and if maybe the magic that's placed around the walls is weak in some spots, or there's some really dangerous monsters coming, they have to protect the city. So it's a really, really dangerous guild. So we're following this group of, well, first of all, we're following two boys that are best friends, and they end up being placed in this Adventurers Guild. That's not a spoiler, that's in the synopsis, I promise. And it's just following them and dealing with the fact that they didn't get placed in the guilds they were hoping for, that they're in this guild now that they're afraid to be in, and just kind of learning more about the world, learning more about what the Adventurers Guild does, and learning about some politics and some kind of like underlying spooky things that are going on within the guilds and kind of the hierarchy of the city. It was a really interesting story, I will say that. Definite D&D vibes. It's an interesting world concept. I did struggle to connect with the characters. I just was having trouble getting into this book, but I really liked the kind of concept of the world and the guilds. It was overall just okay. It was cute, but not amazing. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars, so it was just all right. I'm still not sure if I'm going to continue on this series or not. I'm interested to see what happens. The ending kind of left in a way that I was like, oh, I'm interested to see what happens next. So I may read more of these. I don't know yet, but it's a really cute concept. And if you like Dungeons and Dragons, you probably would really like this. And it is really cute. So I do recommend. It wasn't one of my favorites, but there you go. All right, next is a book that I originally didn't have on a TBR. I was going on a little bit of a road trip to visit some family, and I decided I wanted to have an audiobook to listen to, which is not something I normally do. I don't listen to audiobooks very much just because I don't have much of an opportunity to listen to audiobooks. And on top of that, I really like reading books physically. I'm not a huge audiobook person, but I tried out Strange Practice by Vivian. This is a book I've had on my TBR for a really long time as well. I was really excited to try it out because it has such a fun concept that actually sounds perfect for spooky season. So if you're looking for some spooky season books, this is about the descendant of Van Helsing, and she is actually a doctor for the paranormal. So she helps take care of and heal vampires, werewolves, all sorts of different creatures. I can't remember all the different creatures that are in there, but all these different creatures and things she does for a living. She has a strange practice. She has a doctor's practice of taking care of all these creatures. She lives in London. All these creatures are kind of secretly living within London. This is not something like, people don't know what she does other than the creatures themselves. They don't know that that's her livelihood, her career. But it was first of all, it just sounded like a really exciting concept because I love the idea of this doctor and she helps take care of vampires and werewolves and all these like paranormal, like classic creatures. It sounded all like a lot of fun. The first half I listened as an audiobook. I think that affected my enjoyment because of the amount of characters and abrupt changes of perspective. I don't feel like this worked well as an audiobook, partly because I don't listen to audiobooks often. The narrator, can't say that word, was wonderful. She was a wonderful narrator, but the problem was there were a lot of characters that were introduced very quickly. Some of the characters had complicated names, which was kind of nice to actually hear them first before I did actually read some of it, because I did finish the rest of this book by reading it on an ebook, but I had trouble keeping up with who the characters were. And also within the chapters, there were some, if you were looking at the book itself, there were some like breaks and it would jump to basically a different perspective. And when you're listening to the audiobook, you're not ready for that. And so it'll jump perspective and you don't know right away, like it's jumped to a different perspective, and it's a little bit confusing to me as an audiobook. So I definitely enjoyed it a lot more once I ended up reading the rest of it, because I got halfway through as the audiobook and then I ended up reading the rest because I wanted to see what happened. I just really was struggling connecting with the audiobook and the characters because I couldn't keep up with what was going on and all the different characters. I liked the idea of various paranormal creatures all being friends or coexisting in harmony. So it was kind of cool to see all like these different, like these vampires and different creatures and things kind of all being friends in a way, or at least like coexisting in harmony. And I liked kind of seeing that. And there was sort of like this murder mystery. There ended up being this serial killer on the loose. And that's mainly kind of what the focus of the story is this Greta Helsing she's a doctor and she's trying to help take care of these creatures, and then there's something out there that's targeting humans as well as paranormal creatures, and she and her friends, some other vampires and things, and humans as well, are all trying to band together and see if they can figure out who the serial killer is. So there's the murder mystery aspect, but it was really fun to kind of have like these different paranormal creatures in it. I did struggle to feel connected to the plot. Sometimes the plot didn't grab me enough, but I liked the characters and I liked the concept. Great concept, but didn't quite hit the execution. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. Again, this is a series, so I may jump into the next one. I liked the characters a lot. That was my favorite part of the book. I enjoyed all these different characters. Oh yeah, one of the main characters is also like a demon. And so it was really fun to have like a demon and vampires and werewolves, and there was like, what were the other creatures? I think there were they goblins? They weren't goblins. I don't remember. But it was just sort of all these different types of creatures in present day, all kind of like living within London, but secretly. And I don't know, it was just such a fun concept. It was really interesting. So it's a really cool concept, and it's a really cool book to read in October especially. I mean, it just screams Halloween, to be honest, to me. So I may continue on the series. I'm not in a hurry to do so, but it was really cool. It was a really cool concept, and I'm just hoping like if I read more of them that it will do a little bit better and I'll be able to connect to it a little bit more. All right, this next one I'm extremely excited to talk about. Let me pull up the cover because I gave this one 5 stars. I loved it so much. It was so good. I have to add it to my collection. I want to reread it at some point. My goodness, it was awesome. And that is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. This is technically the 4th book in the Truly Devious series. However, I will say that you could read this one without reading the Truly Devious series, because the Truly Devious series is a trilogy, and it is one long expanding mystery. It's a YA murder mystery series. I won't go into the original series and what that's about because this one is separate. We have the same characters in it. We follow the same characters, but it is a completely different mystery. It's taking place at a completely different location. So I feel like this one, honestly, there could be a few little references here and there that you wouldn't be completely clear on. But as a whole, you could read this one without reading the first 3, honestly. Okay. This book was amazing. All right, here's the synopsis. So we are following Stevie. She is obsessed with true crime and she wants to be an investigator when she becomes an adult. She's currently in high school. In the first series, she ends up solving this murder mystery that has been unsolved for like 100 years or something like that. She ends up solving it, and she ends up becoming a little bit famous from that, kind of just solving that crime. And because of that, there is a summer camp that the owner of the summer camp calls her and asks if she can come and kind of work at the camp, but mainly he wants her to come because there is a mystery, a murder mystery that happened at this camp several years prior. It happened in the 70s or 80s. I think it was the 80s. It happened in the 80s and it was never solved. And so he's hoping that she can come to this camp and maybe solve the mystery of what happened. So the murder it just reminds me so much of like Friday the 13th or something like that. And I don't really like that movie, but it just has that classic 80s horror vibe that I really, really loved. So what happened are there were 4 people who, all these teenagers, they were camp counselors at the camp, and one night they were all brutally murdered. And nobody knows why they were murdered, nobody knows who did it, and it's just this horrible thing that hangs over the town. It's a small town, so I love the small town setting, and my goodness, it was so good. Okay, let me look at the notes that I wrote down so I don't blather on and just keep repeating myself. All right, this was definitely the best side of the series for me. I love that the mystery was all in one book. I love the fact that this wasn't the start of like another trilogy or something. I love the fact that like we started with the mystery, we ended the mystery. I like that. I like it when a book, when it comes to like murder mysteries or just mysteries in general, when it's all encapsulated in one book, and this one is. Great characters with lots of witty moments. I love the dialogue in this. I loved going back and forth between past and present. That's something that happens in the original Truly Divas series as well. This jumps back and forth between present day with Stevie and the past of the murderer as it's happening. So we learn kind of like, we go back and forth in time, and I really enjoy that. I think it's a lot of fun. It had like a nostalgic feel to it, being set in the 80s. It has a nostalgic slasher film vibe. I love the small town setting, and I can't wait to read whatever Maureen Johnson writes next in this murder mystery series. I'm pretty positive there's supposed to be another one, and I really hope so because I loved it. It's so good. This is perfect. I'd say this would be perfect for the fall, but it's fantastic for the summer because it takes place in the summer at a summer camp, and it's just, it was so good, you guys. If I haven't convinced you yet, please read it. It was so fun. Even if you haven't read the Truly Devious series, just read this one. It's so good. Oh my goodness. I loved it so much. It was so great to read it and just love it as much as I did. It made me so happy. Okay, one more book for you. This is a next in a series, and it is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. This is the second book in the Arc of Scythe trilogy. If you haven't heard of this series before, the first book is called Scythe, and it is about a utopian / dystopian society where far in the future, death has now been conquered. People don't die anymore. There's no more sickness. There's no more disease. There's no more if you die by an accident, like if you're in a car accident, or even if you choose to jump off the top of a building and basically commit suicide, you can be revived. You also you can turn the corner, as it's called in the book, and you can actually reset your body to a younger age. So if you're 70 years old and you say, okay, I want to turn the corner now, you can turn your body back to 20 years old. And so you can have like multiple like lifespans, and honestly have like multiple generations of families and all. It's like, it's wild. It's really wild. Now, obviously, with that, there's going to be a population problem, right? Nobody's dying, but people are still being born. So enter in a kind of like society, or like these very specific people who are given the right to kill people. They're called scythes, and they are given the job of supposedly kind of randomly killing people throughout the population to help keep the population down. If you're killed by a scythe, that's it. You're dead. You aren't revived. That's it. And that's kind of the basic premise of the story, or at least the world we're in. We end up following 2 characters, 2 teenagers who are chosen to be scythe apprentices to potentially become scythes. That's the concept of the very first book. I'm not going to say what happens in the second one because spoilers, but this one was a lot of fun. I am so fascinated by the concept of this world. It's so terrifying and strange, and it's such a cool concept. So I really enjoyed that. Interesting plot, but did feel a bit slow at times in this book. I liked the addition of a new perspective. We were introduced to a new character in this one, so I liked having like even another perspective because it jumps back and forth between perspectives per chapter, so I liked having a different perspective in there. It managed to go even darker than the first book somehow. which you didn't think it could, but it did. That has such a crazy ending that was so shocking, and I'm excited to see how it ends. I have the third book up there on my cart from the library. It is a brick. I am a little scared to read it because I'm afraid it's going to take me forever because it's huge, but I'm excited to see what happens in the series. I'm keeping my expectations low for the third book because it's kind of everybody's kind of least favorite in the series, and some people were disappointed by it, so I'm keeping my expectations low. So hopefully it'll still surprise me. But I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. It's been a really cool series to read so far. All right, let me scoot into the middle of the screen here for my pop-ups on the screen and all that. But those are all the books that I've read recently. Let me know down below if you have read any of these books. Let's see, down below, if you would like to comment something but don't know what to comment, then comment a heart emoji, whichever color you want to do. And yeah, let me know down below if you've read these. Let me know also if there are any books you've read recently that you've really enjoyed. Let me know if you've had a 5-star, if you've had a 5-star recently. The Box in the Woods was so exciting to have a 5-star book, and it was so much fun. So yes, on this side of the video over here is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel, follow me on my book journey. On this side of the video over here is a suggestion for another video if you want to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading.